So to make this, you do need quite a wide variety of ingredients, but I promise you it is worth it. Obviously you're going to need some mangoes. You need 5 or 6 largish mangoes. They don't need to be that fresh. If they're reduced because they're going out of date, probably perfect. You want them to be quite, well, very soft really. 2 large Bramley apples. You'll need 400 grams of castor sugar and 400 millilitres of white wine vinegar. You'll also need 2 large onions or 3 smallish ones, a red chilli, about 300 grams of fresh ginger, and the spices we are going to put in are some cumin seeds, cardamom pods, turmeric, coriander seeds and Nigella seeds. These are optional, these just give that nice little specks that you find in mango chutney. This really is a really great recipe. It doesn't last very long at all in our house. It's great with cooked meats as well as with curries like you would normally have mango chutney with. So let's get on and start making it. So what I've done is warm up some oil in a large pan, and to that I'm just going to add the 3 onions. I used 3 small onions which I have finely sliced. Just add those to the oil. We just want to give those a few minutes to soften. It smells lovely already. Just breaking them up with my spoon. And now I'm going to add the 30 grams of ginger, fresh ginger, which I've just very finely sliced like this. Okay. And then we're just going to let the onions and the ginger gently cook for about 8 to 10 minutes until they are nice and soft. So these onions have been cooking for about 10 minutes and they've gone lovely and soft and starting to go a tiny little bit brown. So at this stage we are going to add our spices. And what I've done is in my pestle and mortar I've got 8 cardamom pods which I've just taken the seeds out of. Half a teaspoon of cumin seeds and half a teaspoon of coriander seeds, and I've just given them a very light bashing so they're not powdered by any imagination. They're just a little bit crushed. So let's pour those in. There we go. I'm just going to give those a second just to cook in with the onions, and at this point, once those spices hit the heat, the smells in your kitchen will become amazing. Okay, so just going to give those a minute to cook. And the smells, as I said, are now becoming quite amazing. So those spices have had just a minute or so to cook around in my pan. And now I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of turmeric. Okay. And half a teaspoon of the lovely Nigella seeds. If I can open this. Can't get it open. It's got one of these fancy openings, there we go. So you can open it from both sides to get your spoon in. So half a teaspoon of those. Those are not really going to add anything apart from an aesthetic perspective. I'm going to mix those around again. The turmeric will really help with the colour as well as the flavouring. Then I'm going to add my chilli, which I have de-seeded and then finely sliced. Okay, if you want it to be a little bit more spicy, you can of course always leave in the seeds. But we want it to be more of an accompaniment than the main deal. Okay. Right, now we're going to start adding our fruit. So, first thing we're going to add is the apples, which I have just peeled and cored and then chopped into quite nice little chunks. So let's add those in there. Okay. And then the same with the mango, which again all I've done is skinned this and then chopped it into quite nice chunks. You just keep this moving and stirring round. Okay, now I'm going to add, what I've got in this bowl is 400 grams of white wine vinegar, 400 mils of white wine vinegar, and about 250 mils of water. I'm just going to pour that in. This is going to obviously cool the pan right down. Just going to turn up the heat. And then we're just going to gently bring that back up to the boil. So that's just had a minute or two to come back to the boil. Now we're going to add the last ingredient, which is the sugar, 400 grams of sugar. It is quite a lot, but it's the sugar and the vinegar that are going to allow this to keep for several months without spoiling. I'm going to add all that sugar in there. And we just mix that in. Okay. And now what we need to do is just let this come back up to a gentle simmer, and then allow it to simmer without the lid off for about half an hour. Just keep an eye on it, giving it a stir every so often. If the liquid level does get a bit low, it shouldn't. You can add a tiny bit more water. But just give that an occasional stir every few minutes for the next half an hour. So this has been cooking down for around, it's actually probably had about 35 minutes, and you can see it's gone really thick. All the fruit has really reduced down, gone all nice and mushy. It's nice and gelatinous. Looks like a chutney. So it is ready now to just be put into some jars. Make sure the jars are sterilised and you are putting warm chutney into warm jars. Will keep for a good few months, and I actually think the flavour tastes better in about a month. The sharpness of the vinegar will have really softened, and the sweetness of the sugar and the fruit will have come out. So I'd say make it about a month in advance. It is a great chutney to have on Boxing Day with all the leftover meats, and it is probably one of the most popular things that we make as Christmas gifts. So I hope you give it a go and let me know how you get on. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.